Audio test. Audio test. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU University, and tonight we're going to stream some Mono White Death and Taxes featuring 4 Vryn Wingmare. I said I was going to start at 7, and I'm still a minute or two early here, so I'm just going to give people a minute or two to filter into the channel, and then I'm going to talk about this deck list and give you all a chance to help me make poor decisions about what we're going to do with this deck list tonight. We're probably going to run most of this 75, but I'm amicable to a few little changes here and there for the sake of entertainment and good testing. I'm also getting some things set up. There was some sort of Twitch issue with MTG bot last night, where all of a sudden MTG bot got like banned on all of the channels, and its channel was deleted. And so I'm still getting used to my good bot friend being gone. Rest in peace, bot friend. It's sad to not have you around anymore. I'll have to work on getting some sort of new bot over the weekend. If you have any recommendations about that, I would love to hear that. I've heard things about something called Nightbot, but I don't know anything about it. That is probably the first thing that I'll look at. Oh great, Basic Plains volunteers to be my bot to start things off with, so that's super helpful. You've been in the chat long enough that you know the gist of what's going on here. So tonight is one of my bonus streams, and I'm going to be streaming with 4 Vryn Wingmare. That was the promise. So between Vryn Wingmare and Thalia, we are 100% on this like crazy tax them out plan, where like I just want my opponent not to cast spells. Most of the rest of what's here is pretty stock, you know. Normal D&T right now has 4 flex slots, because you have Mom, Stoneforge, Thalia, Revoker usually as a 3 of, like you could cut to a 2 of, Recruiters and Flickerwisp. So Wingmares take up the entirety of the flex slots really in this deck. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. But I do have 1 extra wiggle room slot, and I was thinking about various things that it could be, and sort of the first thing I was thinking of is, hey, why don't I just run a 24th land like I do in red-white? And my first thought was, hey, why not Ghost Quarter? It seems to supplement the general plan pretty well. All right, Eric, glad I caught you. Happy to have you live here. So chat, here is my question for you to start things off. What is the ratio of Rishadan ports to Ghost Quarters that we want to run in this build, considering that we are playing Thalias and Wingmares? You know, in traditional D&T, the answer is, hey, we want to play 4 Rishadan ports because we want to keep my opponent off of lands even if they have basics. Well, at what point do we start considering just running a bunch of Ghost Quarters if our plan is like, let's tax you more, and against a good portion of the format, the Ghost Quarter is just another wasteland. So, if you have any thoughts on that, I'd be interested to hear them. This is something I've kind of been thinking off and on about all day. So just to kind of go over the pros and cons of each. Against a deck like Grixis Delver, or a lot of the other 3-color decks of the format, they have no basics. Sort of the big 2 decks with basics right now, Checkpile usually has between 0 and 2, and Miracles has a bunch. And there are other decks that you're going to run into that have, you know, basic lands, obviously, like, you know, D&T and Seek and Show, but a lot of times Ghost Quarter can be pretty crippling. So this is this is kind of a stream where you get to play along, and I'll give people a couple of minutes to, you know, comment on what they think about the Ghost Quarter while I kind of talk through the sideboard. So my mono white D&T sideboard recently has usually had either Cataclysm or Gideon, but both do not play well with Thalia and Wingmare together. So I don't think I want to play Gideons. So taking a cue from the red-white build, I'm going to run an extra Recruiter to sort of give me that card advantage, and then a few useful things to tutor up. I'm not going to go so far as to, like, cut the Council's Judgments. I know those are still pretty rough with Vren Wingmare, but this card can just be so important for answering things like True Name Nemesis, that I think I'm still willing to keep it despite that potential awkwardness. Otherwise, most of this is stock, right? 2-path, 1 to 2 Priests, 2 Canonists, 2 Rips, 2 Judgment, 2 Surgicals, and then you have a handful of flex slots. If I had one more card here, I'd probably play Sword of War and Peace, because boy do I love that card, and everyone knows that. But I think most of the other stuff that I have here is pretty reasonable. Alright, so what's chat saying about the Ghost Quarter situation here? Vote for 4, 2 Ghost Quarter, 3 ports, 3 Ghost Quarter, 2 ports. Yeah, I think a 3-2 split in some direction is probably good. I guess if I keep Deathrite Shaman in mind, then more port is probably better. But I do have one more Revoker than normal to go and shut that off. So we have 4, 8. We only have 9 colorless sources here. That's fine. Like in my Sword of War, in my Crusader build that I usually play, I have like sort of 10 colorless sources because I have these caverns that sort of count like halves. So this one being 9 is absolutely fine. Go 3-3 and ship the Canopy. I don't love the Canopy. Like, I probably shouldn't even play the Canopy. The card keeps biting me in the butt. I could go 3-3. 3-3 might be a little bit greedy. I did cut back on the white cards a lot for this, so that might be fine. But I do have a certain threshold of white that I do want to keep. I honestly don't know if the Horizon Canopy is better than a Plains. There's so much Grixis Delver running around the format that the Horizon Canopy is certainly risky. So you like the idea of cutting the Canopy and playing Ghost Quarter. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That leaves us with only 14 white sources, a lot of which are legendary. I don't know that I actually like that. I think I like having 15 better. Especially if, like, I'm going to throw Ghost Quarters at my opponent's lands aggressively. My goal more or less every game is to go, like, Mom or Vile into Thalia into Wingmare. Like, that is plan A every game. I want to make sure that I have my white sources for that. You know, I'll try out the Ghost Quarters tonight. If we like them, we can play with them again later, and we can try incrementing more. So, sort of, before I get started here, I wanted to thank Stefan H. for his donation. I really appreciated that. That happened between last night's stream and this one, and he sent me a rather encouraging email as well that I rather appreciated. So, Stefan, thank you very much for your support. Alright, does anyone else have any bad ideas for this deck list before we get started here? This is not locked in stone yet. I haven't submitted this yet, you know. I'd be willing to cut a Revoker to play another card if someone has a good suggestion, and it's not like we need the second Containment Priest here. That could be another card pretty easily. If you have any ideas for a main deck or sideboard card that you think is good, this is your time to say something. I'll give you about a minute here, and then I'm just going to jump right into the league. Although in actuality it ends up being a little bit more than a minute because, you know, there's a delay between what I say here comes to you in the chat, and then, you know, once you hear that, you can type and respond. So I'm probably going to wait just a touch longer than is necessary. You know, this is a bonus stream other than my normal streams on Monday and Wednesday nights, so. Play with a Kamigawa card that is Rest in Peace on a stick. You mean Jotun Grunt? It's about the only thing I can think of. Which I don't actually have one to show you. So, like, here's the issue with Jotun Grunt. Jotun Grunt plays super poorly with Rest in Peace, and Rest in Peace is just, like, such a good hate card that, like, no matter what, I want to have that. Like, if I was going to do something like that, I'd remove a Revoker and just play a main deck Rest in Peace. And that's something that I've done before. I collected a decent amount of data on that, and it was pretty good. Although, obviously, I don't want to do that with tonight's build, since I'm doing this whole, like, Thalia Wingmare shenanigans. You know, that's the sort of synergy that I don't want. So Jotun Grunt was good in the deck for a very long time because it was a super aggressive beater, and it paired well with Flicker Wisp in order to reset it. But we don't fuel the graveyard particularly well, you know, without fetch lands or anything like that. So it's kind of gone the way of the dodo at this point. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and just jump in there. It seems like the suggestions have been had at this point. No one voted for a Judge's Familiar or anything of that nature. Kind of surprised. I could have been convinced. Next time. Next bonus stream. You're playing against Kinney. Looks like they're mostly a vintage player, not a legacy player. I have no data on them in a very, very long time. This hand has one land and is really, really risky if I don't hit that land, so I'm going to go ahead and mulligan. This is a slow hand. I'll keep it. I really need to scry a 2-drop or something. Source to Plowshares is not optimal. Against a portion of the format, it's going to be a dead card. But if my opponent is playing a Delver deck or equivalent, this can be a bridge to get me to my other cards. So I'm fine with putting that on top. UC into Ponder could be any number of decks. I can't really make any sort of intelligent, informed decisions yet. I'm somewhat tempted to just snap off this Wasteland in case my opponent is something like Ant. But if they were Ant, they might have just, like, fetched an island there. So I think I'll just Plains pass. I would really hate to Wasteland my opponent only to have them, like, play Deathrite Shaman, and then I have to use my next turn in order to, like, cast the Swords to Plowshares. And then still need to rip a land to play one of these cards. Samurai of the Pale Curtain. It has been many moons since I have seen that card in play. Okay, so my opponent is not Ant. They are some sort of Delver deck. That's good. I have looked through the Dominaria stuff. Well, I should say I've looked at a couple of the big ones. It's probably going to have some degree of impact on Legacy. The Karn in particular caught my eye. That card is kind of insane. There are gonna be plenty of Legacy and Vintage decks that probably just take advantage of that, since it's just a colorless card that you can cast early off of, like, stupid acceleration. Leovold. Deal. See if I just get, like, absolutely devastated by something stupid like a Fork Bolt here. Nope. All right. So there's some awkwardness here. My opponent has this Cabal Therapy in yard, and they know about my Flicker Wisp and my Recruiter. If I recruit her for something, they can just tag that something. So that leaves me with less ability to go and just cast, like, Recruiter for Stoneforge, get Jitte, Jitte, kill both Young Pyromancers, or equivalent. So my line this turn probably involves cast Flicker Wisp, attack with Wingmare, use Flicker Wisp to bounce Caracas, go to my opponent's turn, or no, on my turn, my end step, bounce the Leovold, wasteland them off of Trop so they can't recast Leovold, and just hope that I can hold the board with the Thalia for a little while. Ooh, greetings from Brazil. Excellent. The only unfortunate thing about taking that line is that if my opponent does cast the Cabal Therapy and name Recruiter, they get 2 Recruiters. But if they just cast some cantrip, they would need to hit another land in order to be able to flash back a Cabal Therapy. So that might be fine. Sutton, thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate the support. Oh! How did I forget to talk about this? The emote has been submitted to Twitch. It is done. It is going to take a little while to get approval, but that process has started now. So formally, that is happening. Thalia emote is on its way. Oh man. And since my bot is broken, you don't get the nice resub message. That's super unfortunate. Womp womp. Womp womp counter is 1 tonight. This is super unfortunate. I didn't do the mana math of considering my opponent both having a land and casting a removal spell on one of my idiots. Alright, a race it is. Oh boy. We're pretty dead now. Pretty sure that should hit the Wingmare over the Flicker Wisp. So if I block the Pyromancer here, I take 1, I take 5, which puts me to 8, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's still lethal. What gets me out of this? So if I block and I draw Swords to Plowshares, I can Swords to Plowshares the other one of those idiots. And then I still take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I guess I block. Oh, no, we don't block. Alright, so I'm just dead. Yeah, so Stunton, the guy who runs MTG Bot posted on Twitter that, like, the whole thing is down. Like, it is dead. It is not likely coming back from what it looks like. Which is very, very unfortunate. So, like, I will have to find a new bot. Alright, so our opponent is playing sort of the Grixis Pyromancer deck rather than Delver, it looks like. So it's going to be a little bit bigger than Delver, like we saw those Snapcaster Mages there. So, like, basically it's sort of a Delver deck that, rather than Delver, they just go a little bit higher up on the curve. So probably 100% want these Rest in Peace, this Crusader, this Recruiter, and sort of maybes will be like Council's Judgment, Canonist, and Path. Council's Judgment can be good against True Name if they are playing it, or like the random Planeswalkers that they might have for post-board games. I'm probably going to cut my Revokers, and most of the rest of my main deck cards are pretty reasonable here. Yeah, so we're playing a mono-white list that runs 4 Wingmares in the flex slots. So I think I just like this change right here. Like, this is our maybe board of cards. The Swords to Plowshares are important to remove Young Pyromancer and random hate cards that they can have, like Is It Staticaster or Grim Lavamancer. Rest in Peace answers some of that, but I still probably want it. You know, if I win game 2 and I see a bunch of True Names or Planeswalkers, I'll adjust for game 3 and play Council's Judgment, but I don't know that I want it blind. Ooh, and this is 61 though. I do need to trim one more. I can trim 1 Flicker Wisp. Sounds great. It has 3 Wastelands. unless my opponent leads on Deathrite Shaman, we've just got them this game. This is, you know, one of those starts that you don't come back from if I get to just start wasting. I'm not going to cast this Thalia here since this is my only threat. The wooded foothills probably indicates that my opponent has no basics, so the reason I played out that wasteland here is so that if they fetch and do something, I can go and just wasteland them twice on my next turn. Repeal my Ether Vial. Done. That is going to work out well for me. How many more lands do you have, opponent? At least one. But we'll get that, don't worry. At this point, I think I'm okay with exposing the Thalia and just, like, really putting the squeeze on my opponent. I have no guarantee that they have another land here. And if they have a force for this, so be it. Oh, they don't. Wonderful. So basic planes, I already had one wasteland up. So I already was playing around days. Yes, I have a split of snow-covered plains and regular plains in order to play around Predict in Miracles. It's gonna cost you one more mana, sir. Still gonna cost you one more mana, sir. That is fine. So the reason I made that play, rather than just, like, jamming the Wingmare there, was to turn on this port. And now on my next turn, I get to, like, do some combination of shenanigans, probably involving putting the Vryn Wingmare in play. And then casting Recruiter of the Guard. Yeah, I'm sure that is their last Underground Sea. My opponent probably doesn't have very many fetchable lands left in their deck, if we're being just 100% honest. I'm going to expose this to a Force of Will, but I want the flexibility of being able to use Flicker Wisp to protect it, or just get something with Recruiter of the Guard. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this get like something like a Badlands or a Trop. Yep. Leovold, deal. Yeah, the opponent having this many lands is kind of absurd. I agree with that. We're just gonna get another Pegasus here. Marin Crusader would be fine as well. Oh yeah, stunting, like the whole Flicker Wisp Recruiter thing is super frustrating to play against. I'm just going to take this hit for 3 rather than blocking with Recruiter and then doing my whole Flicker Wisp thing. I don't want to get blown out by a Lightning Bolt. Oh, I didn't have a stop set on my second main phase. I still think I'm just going to like hold up the protection of Flicker Wisp here. Lightning Bolt targeting a Vryn Wingmare, you say? How about no? So I'm just going to think for a moment here. I have my opponent taking 7 on the next turn, 8 if the Recruiter gets through, so I'm probably not going to kill my opponent in 1 turn. Keeping that in mind, it's probably fine to use this opportunity to just get rid of the Leovold forever. I think that's better than just like deploying the next Vial. It gives them 3 life and puts them to 11, but it's pretty likely that I have my opponent dead in 2 turns, basically no matter what. So I'd like to turn my Rishadan ports back on, I believe. There is some chance that, like, just deploying the Stoneforge here and getting Batterskull is way better, because it leaves a lot of power in the air that has to be dealt with, while also presenting Batterskull as a second threat that stabilizes the board. You like Stoneforge Mystic and getting Sword of Fire and Ice? So Bosk, if I just port, it gives him a card, and I don't want to do that. If I'm going to give him a card, I just want to get rid of the Leovold completely. So I guess if I play Stoneforge, even if I miss the land, I suppose an attack all out is lethal as is. Alright, I'm in for that. So Stunton, if you're really hot on Flicker Wisp, I have a page on my site entirely about Flicker Wisp. I think I list like somewhere between 40 and 60 different lines with Flicker Wisp and what all it can do. Lightning Bolt targeting a Wingmare. Okay. Alright, so what do I do this turn? If I attack in, it's 5 in the air, so I don't want to like attack all out with everything. All my plays here are fine. I'm 100% attacking in for 5. That happens no matter what. Since my opponent is dead to Flicker Wisp on this next turn, or Vryn Wingmare plus some of these other idiots, I'm not going to deploy the sword. I'm just going to shut off an avenue of attack. We're going to get rid of the Rest in Peace and just, like, stop anything stupid that they might play that mucks with their graveyard. I don't think a lot of things matter here. Yeah, like, I can't think of an out for my opponent that doesn't involve some super narrow sideboard card like Dread of Night. It would have to be Land Deluge, and I think they're probably out of fetchable lands. Sulfur Elemental would be rough right here. That would be about the only thing. And we get there. So we win game 2. Game 2, Triple Wasteland. I know the Triple Wasteland didn't immediately win us the game, but that was the path to get there. Yeah, so, like, I have a love for Mirran Crusader that involves just, like, doing really stupid things with it and killing an opponent in a turn or two. I'll keep this. This isn't the greatest hand, but with double Mother of Runes to, like, get early... man, this Gataxian Probe will be rough if I have Cabal Therapy. Cabal Therapy on Mom will slow me down a lot. Anyway, just talking about this hand like my opponent doesn't know exactly what I'm playing. Like, leading on Mom requires, like, a Bolt or other removal spell from them. Leading on second Mom plus Wasteland requires another. And then, like, I have the Stoneforge as follow-up once that's all said and done. Alright. Deathrite Shaman is real good against this hand. Alright. So I don't really want to go the, like, Wasteland route against the active Deathrite Shaman. I kind of want to keep my lands around in case I have to go and hardcast this Batterskull. I kind of think that my Stoneforge is just going to eat it to any number of removal spells this turn. Or same to the Mom if I play it. So I kind of want to play the Stoneforge in case I draw another 2-drop, so on my next turn I can go, like, 2-drop and Mom. So if I go Jitte, my next turn I can go Jitte and Mom. But Sword of Fire and Ice is way better in a vacuum in this matchup. But I might just value, like, play Jitte and Mom, have 2 dangerous cards that have to be answered in 1 turn. That might be better than the utility of Sword. And keeping Sword in the deck might be better against, like, a Cabal Therapy. Because I don't want to lose that Sword. I'm going to take the Jitte. It feels a little weird to do so. Yeah, Coco, I'm not 100% sure which is right there. I think I value curving out. Yep, alright. So that probably hits the Jitte here. Yep. And, like, I'm much happier to lose the Jitte than I am to lose the Sword of Fire and Ice. Hashtag rewarded? Yeah, it's awkward, right? Alright. That is a fine draw. Yeah, my opponent is a little low on resources now. And I have 2 cards that are pretty annoying. Hoping to dodge something like a Culligan's Command or Fork Bolt or equivalent this turn. That's an annoying sequence. The good news is that that means I can now, like, double wasteland my opponent and just try to make my top of the deck better than their top of the deck. Alright. New game plan. I'm going to take them off of all the ones that let them cantrip. My opponent says good one in the chat, and I do not disagree. So this does put some lands in the graveyard, so my opponent can still make mana with Deathrite Shaman, but they essentially have no ability to cast more than one spell. Yeah, they don't have a basic land. In all honesty, they're fortunate to have another land. You know, they had already played 3, and that's their first, like, real cantrip of the game. Alright, opponent has lots of lands, but apparently little action. Or at least little that they can do. Repeal on the mom. I'll respond. No card for you. My opponent is a little salty in the chat. Alright, you have 1 card left. How spicy is it? Alright, so you get like Snapcaster Push. On Thalia. We have another one. That's fine. Yeah, everything went exactly as planned there. My opponent's response is lol. Alright, a young Pyromancer. Alright, there is no Cabal Therapy in the yard. So it's Stoneforge time. So my opponent... Never mind. Alright, do you have Cabal Therapy? Oh, you don't have Cabal Therapy. That's sweet. Okay. Am I fine with tapping the mom? I'm fine with tapping the mom. Yeah, a removal spell here. Lightning bolt targeting the Thalia. That's okay. I got my 2 for 1. So if I play out this sword now, it would play around something like a stupid Vandilion click. Which I think I'm fine with. Yes, it causes me to take that 1 extra point of damage, but that's fine. Oh, MTG Zonk, thank you very much for subscribing. I really do appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. There is an emote coming soon. It has been submitted for approval. I'm just waiting on that formal approval now. Alright, so opponent finally got a good draw on their end. My opponent has 1 card. 1 card left. I also don't really care if my opponent, like, wrecks my stuff. And like, I'm just throwing this vial out there to die. I know that's gonna happen. That's fine with me. Like, when this is all said and done, like, I still have, like, a Stoneforge that can attack, a Recruiter that can get me something sweet, a Flicker Wisp to blink the Recruiter. Like, we're still super far ahead this game. Alright, opponent, like, you just threw away this Elemental token. There's nothing stupid in the graveyard with Flashback, right? Nope. Alright, both my other equipments are gone, right? Yep. Okay. It's Crusader time. That's a great way to close out this game. And I don't need to, like, push the 1 damage here with Mom. That's not a concern. I just, like, don't want this Mom to die, because Mom plus Crusader will just block my opponent out of this game. Oh, Eric, I was picked up by the Card Hoarder Network. So they are going to let me borrow cards beginning next week. So that's what's up with that. Really looking forward to that, because that means I can stream with a little bit more variety than I am now. Like, I can play a lot of weird builds, like Soldier Stompy, that's an offshoot of Death and Taxes, and I can go and play, like, the True Name D&T builds, and the True Names cost, like, $78 each or something like that. So, like, I'm very excited to have Card Hoarder's support. Yeah, it's been a pretty insane 2-week period for the stream. Will I be streaming other decks? Yes, absolutely, you bet. Like, I play a lot of Legacy. And, like, I'm really experienced with a lot of decks on paper. So I'm 100% willing to, like, stream with other decks. There'll be some shenanigans on this stream from time to time. Everything's great here. More Flicker Wisp can't be bad. Yeah, like, it's nice to have people supporting me, and I mean that, like, both for individuals and for groups. Alright, so K-Can targeting their Snapcaster Mage and my mom. Okay. So mom protects herself. And now I think I just, like, they have Snapcaster Mage plus Lightning Bolt as the out, but to like get rid of the Crusader, but then there's still the Flicker Wisp. So that actually does not save them. They would need another 1-mana removal spell in addition. So I don't think I use this Wasteland and give them another card here. Yeah, and so Stunton, both being new to Legacy and being a good D&T pilot involves knowing a lot about a lot of decks in the format. So I'm 100% willing to, like, stream with other decks. Alright. Lingmeister, let me answer that question momentarily. So my opponent's at 3. I can just attack in with both of these, hit them to 2. Protect whichever one they go, Flicker Wisp the Recruiter, and then bounce Leovold and Caracas. That seems fine. Sorry, Chad, I'm going to ignore you for a minute. My clock's getting low. I'm not in any, like, danger of actually losing this game, but my clock is low enough that I need to focus on my play. Hey, welcome to the stream. Alright, now we win the match. Okay, so let me answer a couple of things. So, Doodalicious said, Deluge saves them for the time being. Sure, but if they have to Deluge even paying 1 life, that's really devastating when they're at 1 and I still have 2 or 3 cards in hand. So Lingmeister asked, Phil, how do we sponsor the stream here? I only hit the heart icon, but I don't think it gave you anything. So there's 2 different ways you can support me. Number 1 is by subscribing. There's a sub button towards the top of the screen, and that goes through Twitch, and sort of Twitch gets half of what I get every month, and I get the other half. And so the base subscription is like I think it's a $5 or a $10 subscription, something like that a month, and that just kind of supports the stream. If you want to support sort of me directly, then below the stream I have a donation little panel there, and that's where you can donate directly to me. And if you're interested in like seeing a stream with a specific deck list, or seeing me test something, or having me like produce some specific piece of content, you can send me a message with a donation. So the black set, yeah, D&T is getting cheaper and cheaper, and like port was one of the biggest barriers of entry, both to online and paper versions of the deck, and that's just gone now. So like the deck is going to be probably one of the cheapest decks in Legacy outside of Burn. All right, so for those of you that have just joined in between like the beginning and end of round 1 here, hi, I'm Phil Gallagher. I'm streaming Mono White Death and Taxes tonight with a whole bunch of Vryn Wingmare, which was pretty great that game. Well, really that whole set. Give me one moment, I'm going to update my spreadsheet and then I'll talk a little bit more. It's hard to do both. So tonight's deck list is focusing really hard on the mana denial plan. If we contrast this to like a normal like Mirren Crusader deck list, it's really heavy on beaters, right? Like you have these guys, which they're just going to Pound Town. They just want to like absolutely destroy you. Whereas this deck is more controlling, and Thalia and these Vryn Wingmare stack, making my opponent's life miserable. To supplement that, I'm playing a 24th land, and we're playing 2 Ghost Quarters and 3 Rishadan Ports here. That should make their life pretty terrible. I'm sorry it took you that long, MTG Zonk. I haven't actually tried out Twitch on the any of the mobile devices, but I haven't heard the best things about the apps. You know, it is what it is, but I want to watch things on a big screen if I'm going to be watching something. So, that's just me. But I guess an iPad's big enough. We are playing against the Nightman. Whoa! They might be a D&T player. I'm going to assume they're not a D&T player and keep this hand. Because if they're not a D&T player, this hand is awesome. This is like a devastatingly good hand against any sort of blue deck, and the results that say they're on D&T are old results. Alright, so maybe not D&T, but looks like it's probably Maverick. Oh, okay, you're just using that for chat. I understand completely. Bosk, someday, we may go deep enough to play, like, 4 Thalia, 4 Wingmare, 4 Glowrider. Today is not that day, but someday. Alright. Stoneforge is fine for the moment. My Mother of Runes is going to hold the ground, as to a lesser extent is Thalia. But that will be a problem later. So if I wasteland my opponent's Savannah, they can still put in the Jitte this turn. If they have another land, they can go Jitte equip, but they can't get through Mom. I think the card that will, like, probably really hurt me the most in the short term is something like a Swords to Plowshares, because, like, if I use Mom to protect and they have a Swords, that's problematic. So I'm going to go Wingmare this turn, Wingmare next turn, and then wasteland Savannah. And I'm fine with attacking with the Thalia, because Thalia can't beat Stoneforge after an Exalted trigger anyway. If that time comes, put in 4 Hoot Hoot 2. Everyone loves an owl. So the problem with Thorn of Amethyst is, like, if you don't play that as your first one, like, it just becomes impossible to cast. And I know this... Oh! There's red in there. So we might be playing against Punishing Maverick. Ah, their own Mother of Runes is real bad. That's real bad. I need to rip an out to that. Otherwise this Jitte just takes over the game and all my creatures have 1 toughness. Uh-oh. And I'm dead. Okay. So, I guess my line is Horizon Canopy, draw a card. Nope, Swords to Plowshares doesn't do it right here. Fuck. Alright. Alright. Do I have anything that can possibly save me? I don't think so. I think my out is that my opponent does not realize that they can use the mom to push through my board. I think that is my out. This is rough. I can wasteland 1 land, port another land, but then they still have, like, Noble Hierarch plus the remaining land to tap to equip Jitte to that Stoneforge, and they can still attack in with the Stoneforge. It becomes a 2/3, and they're just gonna, like, push it through with the equipment. I guess I can just leave up all of my lands and pass... No, like, wasteland them once, leave up 3 lands like I'm holding up Swords to Plowshares, but if I've paused for this long, they probably know that I don't just, like, have the swords, because I would just, like, snap Swords the Mom right here. I have a flyer and a sword. This sword is not anywhere near castable. This sword costs 5 mana. It's not happening. Alright. Yeah, I'm dead here. So I am not wastelanding. I want to keep my lands so that when all my creatures die, I have the possibility of, like, Sword of Fire and Ice and equip in 1 turn at some point. Alright, my opponent has figured out the piece of the puzzle here. Yeah, I need, like, a Revoker or a Swords to Plowshares this turn. I don't think I can win if it goes another turn down the line. Come on, top card. Come on, top card. All right. Now we're just gonna do a removal spell. So like a Swords to Plowshares or a Punishing Fire on this Revoker, like again, just puts us in like super we're dead territory. Yep. So this Jitte is going to accumulate counters every turn until they eventually get the removal spell to stop all of this. We can change the name of this stream into Top Deck for the win. Or Top Deck for the lose. We can pretend that Stoneforger there was a Top Deck. Oh great, Sword of Fire and Ice 2 now. This is fine. Everything's fine, chat. Alright, I think I'm conceding. Yeah. There's too much now. Like, the Sword of Fire and Ice forces me to block with the Revoker, which then puts Jitte online, which kills Thalia, plus, like, my next two creatures. We're donezo. We're done. Ugh. Alright, so playing against Punishing Maverick, we were on the play and we lost to Nightman. Oh, see, I read it as Nightman 0, but it's really Nightman. Oh, I see now. Alright. Opponent outplayed us and got us with their name. Alright, so we're playing against Maverick. Punishing Maverick specifically. So we'll want a Rest in Peace, we'll want some amount of additional removal, probably the Council's Judgment and the Mirroring Crusader, the Extra Recruiter, and the Relic Order in the maybe pile that probably don't make it in. We will likely end up cutting a majority of our sort of taxation package for these interactive cards. Not that one. I don't know that I can afford to cut all of those Wingmares, though, because that's a big portion of Plan A. If I cut that many, then how many creatures am I actually left with? You don't want to go too low on the creature count. So that would leave me with 15 creatures. That's cutting it a little too thin there. Hello, Shoe of Poo. Welcome to the stream. I might want to just, keep one more creature over one of those paths. Where does this put me? That curve looks a little bit better. I'll keep that. This is one of those matchups where we're really going to feel the difference between having the Crusaders and having those Wingmares here. This is not a great hand, but I don't think it's bad enough to mulligan. It has Vials, but I'm going to need more action off the top. Like, even with these recruiters and, like, just planning on going the Flicker Wisp chain, I am going to need a little more than just what's in my hand to win this one. Okay, like, so I know, you're saying Path and Legacy, that can't be good, right? So you can play Swords to Plowshares. But the weird thing about it is that so few decks are playing basic lands that a lot of times it is just better than Swords to Plowshares, as weird as that sounds. How are you so good? Great question. Hopefully we're good enough to draw Swords to Plowshares right here. Nope, not quite that good. Need to, like, meditate under more waterfalls to get better at top decking the necessary cards. It's probably my misplay. Oh, great. So we're just gonna die again this game. Jitte is a great Magic card, ladies and gentlemen. You ever said, hey, they should unban Jitte in Modern? No. No. Alright, so we have some degree of protection against the Jitte. I can go and tap my Vial on 2 at their end step. That'll cause them to go and put the Jitte in. I can then revoke something other than Jitte, Council Judgment away the Jitte. We'll see what their turn has in store for them. It could change what we do a lot. Stay strong and Council's Judgment the Jitte. Yep. That bird's annoying. This does not bode well for me. If my opponent didn't fetch and put the Jitte in there, then they might just have another piece of equipment. Can I get a link to your Discord? If you go to Thraben University, under recommended reading, the link to it is there. Yep. So there's not much I could have done about that. Like, I figured out that's what was happening, but since my opponent has a flyer and I don't, I can't actually deal with this. And if I had named Sword of Fire and Ice with this Revoker, then my opponent puts in the Jitte instead, and I get conked by Jitte. So doing it this way means they equip on the bird, and I lose one creature to the sword, and then I can Council Judgment away one of those things. Yeah, there's a reason why I said the bird was annoying when he played it. Punishing fire targeting me. This seems poor. Yep. It's cool, we're just in the abyss from here on out. That doesn't help. So I really have no way out of this. I can Council Judgment away the sword, then they use their turn putting in the Jitte, and then I have to top deck an answer to the Jitte. Or I can take a hit from sword and Jitte to get rid of Jitte. But if I do that, my entire board is gone. So I probably need to take care of Sword of Fire and Ice. And I will have like one turn of reprieve. Unless my opponent has another land, in which case I don't. So I'm going to let you think about that for a second. That doesn't actually work the way you want it to. They have a mom too. So they mom on their creature, go pro-white, and then they still get in. Stoneforge is a safe unban for Modern. It's an unban that I want. Is it safe? The Black said, I'm about to die. I'll talk about the check pile in just a second. Man, my opponent, like, bungled their turn. That's awesome. If only I could capitalize on their bungling a bit better. So, like, all they needed to do was, like, hard cast Jitte, put it on Stoneforge, equip to Stoneforge, Stoneforge pro-white, bash in. But now, I get a chance to get out of this. Oh, fuck. Now they have, like, Grove punishing Firelock, too. That's bad. Yep. Look, the opponent might not be good, but Jitte is good. Jitte in incompetent hands is still a murder machine. Ha-ha! Drinking is hard to game. Yes. Yes, that is true. Alright, you have Athalia. Alright, you have another creature with power and toughness. Alright, come on, deck. Ha ha! Not dead! Not dead! I vote for Jitte. Woo! Now all I have to do is draw a Rest in Peace to deal with the Punishing Fire, and then we're in business. Alright. So, the black set asked, check pile's not a good matchup if I'm not mistaken. Actually, you are mistaken. With red-white death and taxes, I'm currently, I think, at like a 70% win rate against check pile. It's something absolutely absurd. Let me like pull that up and take a look when I get a second here. So my red-white data. I'm fine with just taking that too. No need to try to get cute. Yeah, so I'm currently something like, it looks like 13-5 against check pile, or something like that. So, like, my numbers are really, really good against check pile. I think my opponent's just gonna, like, waste their whole turn to realize that, like, double Mother of Runes is really good. Oh, you meant mono white? I think my mono white numbers were still really good against check pile. Hold on. I have data. Punishing Fire the other mom. Okay. You have a second Punishing Fire? Tilt. So my sample size is smaller, but it looks like I was 5-3 against check pile with mono white. So like that's still fine. So my board is dying to double Punishing Fire. But, like, we're very much in the sort of situation where a top deck Recruiter or Rest in Peace, like, can pull us really far ahead. But we don't have a lot of time. I made a small error that turn. When they tapped the Grove... Never mind, it was not an error. It was carefully planned. I was about to say, when they tapped the Grove, I should have given my mom pro-red, but that caused them to use the second Punishing Fire to put me in this exact situation. So it worked out. Yeah, data's for the win. Data's great. I try to talk using data and statistics when I can. Like, alright. This knight is not a huge issue due to the Rest in Peace, but I still have, like, a board of a 1-1 versus a board of multiple 2-2s, and knight could get some things that are annoying. I don't know what degree of utility lands they have, but, like, a Wasteland, for example, to get rid of my Caracas is probably incoming. Yeah, Shadara, one of the issues about, like, a lot of people talking about matchups is, like, they've played a matchup 5 times or something like that. You know, they do like, one night of testing, and, like, then they make their conclusions based on that. Whereas, you know, I've got, you know, 6 months worth of data or something like that from Magic Online. Alright. What am I doing with my life? I'm gonna wasteland that grove before my opponent manages to get rid of this rest in peace and makes the grove relevant again. I'm just gonna do this now and get my F6 value in. I mean, I gave you something pretty close to N is 30, right? I forget what my exact numbers were, but it was a very sizable portion. Okay. I don't know what this is doing yet, but it is stuff. So I think this just gets a recruiter. The second recruiter gets me Stoneforge. Stoneforge gets me Jitte or Sword of Fire and Ice, and then I equip and bash that in and start going to town on my opponent's board. Oh no, the issue is they have that Mother of Runes, though. So, and like the Bird of Paradise stonewalls any of that. So maybe it's just second Flicker Wisp or Mirran Crusader. No, I guess Mirran Crusader doesn't get through. I'm going to start off with a Flicker Wisp and set a stop on my opponent's second main. Okay, I think I solved the puzzle. I think it's Batterskull. Get Stoneforge, get Batterskull, put Batterskull on Flicker Wisp, and then, like, the mom has a lot of duty to do. Oh boy, we're getting into the statistics in chat. I've ground through a lot of crap this game. I think I'm at the turning point now. If my opponent has something like a Maze of Ith, that might not actually be true. Thir 30 matches against the same deck is, like, statistically speaking, very good. But you usually don't get 30 matches, you know, because that can be between, like, 70 and 90 games very, very easily. So that's not the sort of thing that's realistically going to happen most of the time in data collections. Alright. Opponent trying to tax me out here. Shut off the utility of my basics. Or my non-basics. Yeah, I can also move the Batter Skull to something like the Stoneforge Mystic to be, like, guaranteed hitting in for 6 each turn. But I don't really want to, like, tap out to do that again. I really want to, like, have the ability to bounce the Batter Skull in case my opponent has something stupid. Alright, so my opponent here is representing something like a Punishing Fire to, like, finish off the Flicker Wisp. I think that's okay. If they have a Punishing Fire, like, it's just a one-time kill one of my idiot things, and then I can just, like, re-equip this over here. So I think I'm okay with blocking. Alright, that's okay. So I can put in sword on Flicker Wisp attack, and that forces the bird to die. That sounds awesome. Okay. Yeah, this is still game 2. I'm gonna have to completely ignore the chat for game 3. And that is lethal. Alright. I spent too much time looking at my spreadsheet that match. If I lose, it's because I was looking at my spreadsheet. Let the record show. I was on the play for that, and I won. I'll be on the draw for game 3. And I more or less like what we did. Again, we're a little bit body light, as we kind of felt that game, since a lot of our creatures are just kind of bad in this matchup, but I think that's okay. Since my opponent's a Punishing Fire deck, I don't quite know that the Relic Warders are good enough. Yeah, it was a great and very interesting game. We managed to come back through double early equipment. That's not something that happens a lot. I'm gonna turn off on the stop on my opponent's upkeep just to kind of like give me a couple of seconds extra on the clock. Alright, Green Sun for Dryad Arbor. That's fine. I'll play Mom. Unless I draw a Vial. Oh, great. Yet another game where Phil has to deal with like a turn fucking 3 Jitte. It's fine. Taking that line means that if my opponent wants to, like, vial in the Jitte, they would have to have another white source. And I could potentially do some things at sorcery speed. Knight, sure. I just want to get that knight off the table. I might be able to get a touch more value by holding that up on my turn, in case they, like, go to equip the Jitte, but I don't want to give them a knight activation. We're doing just fine on time, thank you. I spent too much of game 2 like messing around with spreadsheet data. I need to not do that while I'm playing. But like I think I've taken like 25 seconds on my clock this game, so like I'm doing okay. And if my opponent sits here for too much longer thinking, their clock will go down lower than mine. Alright. This is going to get a Revoker to revoke Umezawa's Jitte. Then my next turn is Revoker plus Stoneforge unless anything changes. I think that's a poor equip, because if I have a Wasteland, I can just, like, Wasteland them off of that on the next turn. Yeah, it is still green, right? I believe it's still green. Yep. Why did I get my own Jitte there? I just kind of like went on autopilot since I was moving so quickly. That was very poor. Oh, there's Athalia. Green Sun X equals 3. Okay. Be like a reclamation sage or something. Maybe just a knight. Kozali Pride Mage. So that's kind of annoying. So I can play Stoneforge, get new piece of equipment, equip new piece of equipment on Flicker Wisp, try to bash in, Pride Mage goes and blows that up. It's not the best. Alternatively, I just like new Stoneforge, hold up Stoneforge activation. Shit, I don't have time to think about this properly. So then they sack the Pride Mage, blow that up. Yep. I need to do this though so they don't just like do shenanigans to get my Revoker off the table. Punishing fire my mob. Slightly annoying. Can't do combat math. Woo-hoo-hoo! Skillfully navigated matchups with no mistakes and careful pacing, chat. Very, very careful pacing. Sorry I ignored you for a couple of minutes there. That got a little bit dicey towards the end because I spent too much time talking about statistics. I get distracted easily. So game 3 win with 10 seconds left. Oops. That's on me. Sometimes I do that. And I get too caught up talking to the chat. Yeah, opponent was not playing to intentionally time me out, which I do appreciate, because they most certainly could have. Like, they could have just done random things, like night activations after, like, double blocking to, like, try to mess with me. But, like, obviously we don't, like, name Abandoned Hope there. We're not far enough on board. We're supposed to name Jitte. We're supposed to, like, do a couple of those other turns differently in the last 5 minutes of the game. But I didn't have time to think about it. As you saw there, we were down to very, very narrow margins. And just like that, easy as that, we are currently 2-0 with this 4X Vryn Wingmare build featuring some Ghost Quarters. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Phil Gallagher. I run ThrabenU University, and I almost exclusively stream Death and Taxes on this channel. Although since I got picked up by the Card Order Network and I can borrow cards now, well, starting next week anyway, that might change from time to time. I won the die roll. I'm gonna have to think about this hand. Do I have any data on my opponent? Daniel Nunes. My opponent looks like they're playing a Alright, Chad, I'm not going to tell you what my opponent is playing. I'm just going to keep my hand and let it happen. The data's old, so they might not be on what I think they're on. But I really hope they are. Yeah! Oh, I didn't want them to start with a vial. No, it's just straight up meat hooks. It's slivers. If they didn't start with the vial, I was just planning on wastelanding them out of the game. But we're going to need a little more business than that here. I actually think I want to get Batterskull, because Batterskull backed up with Sword of Fire and Ice is probably good enough to take over this matchup. Even though Jitte is better in a vacuum, I don't have other bulk in my hand. So in case they have like a Gale Rider Sliver that gets big and I can't trade with it, I'll probably want to have the Batterskull. So for anyone not familiar with meat hooks or legacy slivers, it's like D&T in that it's an Ether Vial deck, but it's unlike D&T in that it is actually tribal. Alright, immediately rewarded for not getting Jitte. by my opponent playing the Crystalline Sliver. Also, super rewarded by drawing this Revoker, because I can revoke the Vial now, and then, like, start wastelanding them. Oh, they do have a 1-drop Sliver. Ugh. Okay. So flanking gives my guys -1 when they block. Must not forget about flanking and make bad block and lose game because of it. Alright. A little bit in the danger zone here, but it's okay. So, I can wasteland my opponent again with this Ghost Quarter and take them off another mana source. Or I can just put in the Batterskull and plan on putting the sword on the Batterskull on the following turn. That is probably better. And not going to make an attack here and turn on my opponent's Ether Vial. So my opponent should just attack me for 11 here. I can't actually block with the Batterskull, because if I do so, then my opponent will kill it because of the flanking. I do think I am okay with, like, using the Stoneforge to soak up 4 damage, though. The race might be kind of close. Wait, no. I need the Stoneforge to put in the equipment. Almost punted. So I will just take all that. Probably want to reset this stop on my opponent's second main phase. And put in the Batterskull. So I can't actually shoot the Slivers because of the Shroud. Fuck! Alright, fine. Didn't play around that. Couldn't play around that. Game 1 loss to Winged Sliver for lethal. Haven't written that sentence before. probably will never write that sentence again. So we go to the sideboard. What do we bring in? We bring in removal. I know it was blanked by Crystal and Sliver that time, but usually it won't be. And then we'll consider some number of, like, the other fair cards. Might even consider Containment Priest because, like, vile reasons. I'm going to start by, like, figuring out what's bad. Yeah, if our bot was working, we could put that in a quote, but that's not happening. So the Thalia portion isn't great. I'm probably fine with cutting most or all of my Thalias. They're going to get outclassed pretty quickly, and a lot of the times I'm going to need to go in via the air. My recruiters are probably going to be too slow. I 100% want the paths. The Relic Warder probably doesn't have enough targets. Mirror Crusader and Council's Judgment just come in as additional removal and just something of decent bulk. And then I have to figure out whether or not I want to, like, play a Containment Priest. If I Priest and my opponent has Vile, it's sweet. If I Priest and I have Flicker Wisp, it's also pretty sweet. Whether or not, like, I want to play 2 or 1 of these, like, whether Priest is better than Wingmare, that's a tricky question. I think I'm going to trim a Wingmare and play both of these Priests. If nothing else, since I'm on the play, if my opponent just kind of like attacks in with a naked Sliver that's not pumped, I can flash this in and block, and I might just kind of trick my opponent into giving me a card. This is not a matchup that I have tested a lot, you know, obviously. This is an awkward hand. This is not strong. If my opponent leads on a Vile hand and does not have very many mana sources, this is fine. But I don't think this is a hand that is likely to win me the game. Like, this has a mix of lands and spells, but it does nothing. I would rather mulligan and, like, try to find an Aether Vial or a Stoneforge hand or a hand with some removal to buy time. I can, like, very likely just get run over if my opponent is just on a, like, aggressive non-Vile hand. This is terrible. Like, this is a 5-card hand, and it's not a good 5-card hand. I'm gonna ship this one, too. I guess I'll keep this, and bottom that. Alright, so, we lost to Slivers on stream tonight. That happened. Opponent leads on the Aether Vial hand. I'm immediately punished for my choice of mulligan. Don't even know if I can, like, wasteland them because I'm down so many cards. I probably just need to, like, try to play out my lands and hope I draw something, and we'll get aggro with this mom. I don't regret mulliganing the hand. I 100% do not. Alright, little late, Aether Vial. Of note, Mutavault is all creature types, so it is a Sliver. So that is not a 2/2 land. It will be much bigger and much more annoying. this the weird Cavern of Souls that's in Standard? Yeah. Oh, and now they're all shroudy. Another Lord to make them bigger. Yeah. Oh man, this is annoying. So if my opponent knows how this works, my Wasteland can't actually take out the Mutavault. Because, like, all they have to do is animate the Mutavault, and then all of a sudden, it's immune to Wasteland. Oh. Yes, you just typed in the chat the exact same action that I was talking about. Yes, it's real annoying. So the good news is that does this actually produce colorless mana too? It does. So if my opponent animates Mutavault, I can Wasteland. They can reanimate in response. Let's see if they know that line. They're a Slivers player, so they should. All right, I'll scoop there. That's fine. Womp womp. All right, that's a loss. Game 2, mull to 5. So let's say that we kept that opening hand that was like just a couple of Revokers that we could cast, and then like I think a Recruiter and a Wingmare or a Flicker Wisp or something like that, and a Council's Judgment. That hand probably doesn't get there either against that one. Like, I can slow them down a little bit, but like it didn't have the right sort of cards for the matchup, so I'm still very confident in my decision to mulligan that, even though like we mulliganed into 2 terrible hands in a row. So be it. Alright, we're 2-1. We lost to a meme deck. I'm fine with that. So for anyone who's joined in between the last rounds, here's what we're playing. We're running a 4x Vryn Wingmare build tonight. Mono white, you know, no PNKs or Moonmans tonight. And we're featuring 2 Ghost Quarters alongside 3 Rishadan Ports in the sideboard, going up to the 24th land in order to fit those in. The rest of the core of the deck is pretty stock, and the sideboard is relatively unexciting. This was a stream brought to you by... Oh, wait! You guys! I think this was my stream for hitting 400 followers? For hitting 400 followers. I normally stream on Monday and Wednesday nights, somewhere between about 6:30 and 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. But every once in a while, you know, every 50 followers I get, I throw out another stream. So we're about halfway to the next bonus stream, as is. Perversus, or Perversus. Looks like my opponent is a Miracles player. This hand isn't going to do it. This hand's not great either. But I'll keep on a 6. And now the hand's fine. Sorry, updating the spreadsheet with the beginning of this round. Data is important, after all. We'll hide information by playing Wasteland on turn 1, rather than anything else. Should set an upkeep stop on my opponent's turn before anything else. Predict targeting themselves. And they get rid of a land. Okay. In case they're playing back to basics, I'm going to play my planes out before the Caracas, even though the Caracas has more utility. Let the record show that I really, really, really don't like the Miracles matchup with the mono-white deck or the red-white deck. That matchup's hard. Much, much harder than it used to be. In terms of mana efficiency, I want to play a 3-drop this turn, giving myself the ability of, like, Stoneforge plus Port on the following turn. This also uses more of my opponent's mana if they choose to just answer it with, like, a Swords to Plowshares or something like that. So what deck is good against Miracles? Cloudpost. Play any sort of, like, big Eldrazi, Cloudpost type deck, and you will just roll Miracles. It's basically unwinnable. It's real bad. D&T used to have, like, more 2-drop cards to fight against Miracles, and a lot of times, like, you just revoke top, and, like, sometimes that was just the end of the match, like, realistically speaking. Whereas now, the Revokers are borderline dead against them. I'm just going to start this. And I'm just going to get a Thalia since it's bounceable with Caracas. We're not closing out this game anytime quickly with the resources that I currently have. So, expecting the game to go long, having Thalia to bounce is good. And a big difference between, like, this and the red-white deck is, in the red-white deck, I would have had P and K to go get. Alright, let's see if this Thalia eats a counterspell. It didn't. Since this Stoneforge cantrips, effectively speaking, I am okay with running this out there. I don't actually, like, lose another card to Terminus if that happens. Burn is good against Miracles? I believe that. Like, not all of the Miracles decks now are playing Counterbalance, and the Counterbalance top lock was one of the things that made the Burn matchup bearable. But without that, it's hard to close the game quickly enough to make all that worth it. Alright, so does my opponent have the Terminus? If yes, I don't care that much. I bounce Thalia, and then, you know, the next turn I can play, like, Sword and Thalia, or just, like, slam the Batterskull. The only way I care a little bit is if they have, like, a Swords to Plowshares in addition. So Miracles players are saying that it has like a sub 50% matchup against the field. So I haven't played a lot of like the Neo post-ban Miracles, so I don't want to like say that I understand it perfectly or anything like that. But it feels like a really good deck. It is crushing the shit out of me. I think I want to lead on this sword. My opponent has a counterspell and they eat the sword. I'd rather them eat... Oh, nope, that just happened. So now I'll cast Thalia. And play the Protective Caracas. So, kind of... I needed a second to think about what I wanted to say about Miracles there. I imagine the combo matchup has gotten much worse, but a lot of the fair matchups have gotten better. Because when you have time to just like go through with the crazy cantrip engine that the deck is playing now, and just churn card advantage with like Predict and Terminus and Jace and Entreat and whatnot, and occasionally Haymakers like Back to Basics too. Alright, there's a Jace. So are you just going to like bounce my Thalia so it lives for a turn? Or are you just going to use it as a 4-mana Brainstorm? Yep, okay. Do you have a counterspell? No. Alright, well, Thalia's not going anywhere. So the big thing I need to fear right now is basically Entreat. My hand does not beat any reasonably sized Entreat, and my opponent can Entreat for X equals 3 paying the Thalia tax. If I kill 1 with Thalia's first strike, get 1 with the Swords to Plowshares, and then kill 1 with the Flicker Wisp, then I'm back at parity, but the Jace probably gets out of control by then, if it doesn't just die this turn. And I'll attack my opponent directly, because the Sword of Fire and Ice trigger can kill the Jace. The only way this is punished is if my opponent has an unexpectedly absent to answer the sword, but that's somewhat uncommon right now. Swords Thalia, you say? I'll bounce Thalia. I'll redeploy Thalia. It's not going to have Caracas back up this time. Ah, that's tapped wrong. I should have left Port up in case my opponent does exactly what they just did. So I will give my opponent access to 1 more mana than I needed to give them. So I don't take a lot of stock in what any given pro or semi-professional is playing until I like really know that they have a huge following. Like, for example, a lot of players who are playing red-white right now would... Oh, fuck, they have Enforce. Ugh, that's bad. So, like, a lot of red-white D&T players would use one of my lists as a basis. A lot of, like, Delver players might use one of, like, Lewis CBR's lists as a basis. I'm not going to use Jim Davis's Miracles list as a basis for my Miracles deck. I think Jim Davis is a great player, and I was actually hosting him right before I started the stream up. So, like, I have a high opinion of him. But, like, unless it's, like, a dedicated legacy pilot who is always playing a deck, is, like, doing a certain thing, and it's been very successful, I don't take a lot of stock in, like, weekly ins and outs of a lot of decks. Like, there are too many people who are going to be doing slightly different things that, like, you just can't trust that to be right. Oh, man. My opponent has a Swords to Plowshares here. I'm just, like, not coming back from that. Okay. Like, I'm still probably not coming back. If my opponent has, like, any more reasonable interaction, then, like, the Monk's chump blocking for 2 turns should do just fine. Alright. What was X there? X is 0, so the Stoneforge is the top card, and then they're going to get rid of the Stoneforge. Okay, fine. We'll fight like this. And my opponent's deck doesn't have a lot of crap that just isn't relevant in this matchup anymore. Like, in Game 1, we got to, like, basically ignore Counterbalance. That's not the case anymore. Like, that's just not around. Alright. So my turn is Recruiter for Revoker, Revoke Jace. Hope that works. I'm in for that. Again, just tapped like an idiot instead of leaving my port up. Comment in chat here. That seems right to me, Phil. Lately I've been paying more attention to Honorog's list, which is really different from Jim's. Yeah, so if I was going to look at a Miracles list, like, personally I would look at what Honorog was running or what a couple of the dedicated Miracles grinders on the source were running. I would be more inclined to look at those than Jim Davis's deck lists. And that's because he's going and playing a lot of different formats, right? Like, he's probably playing a mix of, like, Standard, Modern, Legacy, whereas some of those other grinders are, like, exclusively on Legacy. Proto, I think that is a perfectly reasonable line. But I think I'd rather have that line available to me in case my opponent has an answer. Yep. Alright, so what do I have available to me? So I Flicker Wisp, reset Loyalty on Jace, and equip, leaving up 1 mana. As soon as I get 1 more mana, I can go, like, Batter Skull and equip in the same turn. So you trust Reed Duke on Jund. Name another Jund player. Like the only... another Terminus? No, that's 5. Nope, there's the 6. Okay, so I guess, like, Jeff Hooglin has been playing some Jund with Rabblemaster. That deck's kind of cool. But, like, a lot of the other names you mentioned there are very reasonable. Alright, I have done everything I can in this game to get through this damn Jace, so here's to hoping that this finally does it. Alright, so I finally got around to reading the second part of that comment. Yeah, that's the thing about, like, a lot of the grinders, is they are very good Magic players who go and play a lot of Magic, but that doesn't necessarily mean they test a lot for any given format. Like, they can just, like, run with their instincts and general knowledge of formats and just play very, very well, and then that's fine. Ooh, I might have to check out Honor. Alright, so we got, like, Super Time Walked. Do I have enough to, like, Batter Skull, replay Batter Skull? What do we have? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I do. But in doing so, I expose it to a counterspell and to just, like, Jace Bounce. But I don't have anything else to do this turn. I'll bite. Like, I just have to take... Any line that gives me another shot at getting a real card off the top of my deck is fine. Like, if I just take no action and that Jace Fate Seals me just again and again and again and again, I'm not getting anywhere. Bleh. Alright. My opponent votes for Batterskull. I'll vote for Germ. Alright. Real dead here. However, I am not going to concede, because my opponent is down, like, 5 minutes on clock. And this is a matchup where, like, you very regularly go to time or close to it, so just, like, taking 1 more minute off of my opponent's clock could be really, really relevant. As we have seen tonight on stream, those seconds sometimes matter. As I won my, what was that, my previous round with just 10 seconds left. If my opponent was anywhere close to, like, time parity with me, I wouldn't do this. But they're not. Welcome to the world of Magic Online, where the rules are entirely different from the rules of real Magic. Alright. We lose game 1. That's fine. It's not unexpected. Game 1, lost to Jace, and multiple Terminus. We'll be on the play for the next one. So we are kind of weak for this matchup. I'll bring in this Recruiter. I'll bring in the Council's Judgment. Canonist and Crusaders are maybe. The Swords to Plowshares are pretty weak. Our opponent showed us Mentor, but we don't know, like, how many they're running. And the Mentor is very beatable with, like, normal draws, whereas some of the other cards are much trickier to beat. I might leave in one to hedge here, since, like, Canonist and Crusader are both sort of average power level cards. Yes, Anurag is Anzi D on Twitch. Highly recommend his content. His stream is very good and very informative. He's also kind of a funny guy, and there's a lot of, like, cute things about dogs running around. I think I might actually pull the Swords to Plowshares and run a Canonist. And then cut a Flicker Wisp for another Canonist. Like, my boarding is weak in comparison to their boarding, so I think I want to, like, try to get my licks in early while I can, and go from there. I could also just board out a land and play one more creature. The Ghost Quarter is not awesome in this matchup since my opponent has a bunch of basics, so I actually think I will do that. Board out a Ghost Quarter, and keep that last Flicker Wisp. I don't have a link to it off the top of my head, but it would be, you know, twitch.tv/OnZD. So while this isn't an Ether Vial-based hand, if my opponent doesn't immediately answer the Thalia, I get to curve Thalia into Wingmare, and that can be pretty darn annoying. My opponent fetching a Tundra here might be a sign of weakness of their hand. It might mean that they're kind of mana light, or, like, they... So they led on Arid Mesa, and they had this Brainstorm, so it was something they probably were going to do, so they probably don't have a blue fetch or an island. Or they have Terminus in hand and wanted to be able to Terminus if I... No, that one doesn't make sense. If I, like, Stoneforge, but then they wouldn't do that in response. Oh, it might have just been like a double Arid Mesa hand, forcing them to get Tundras. I see. Portent targeting themselves. I now have to decide how much fear I have. The no fear of Terminus play is Wingmare, right? So, if my opponent has Terminus, they can't pay for double tax. But if that Terminus is one more card down, and they envisioned me playing Wingmare, I'm super boned. But Thalia wants to ride her flying horsey, and I am not going to stop her. I really hope my opponent, like, draws Terminus on their turn and is just, like, super punished. Yeah, so, like, the actual process of streaming itself is much more entertaining with music playing. However, like, there are people all around the world interested in my content, and I mean that, like, very, very literally. Like, I get messages from, like, Spain and Germany and Great Britain and Australia all the time, so, like, I want anyone anywhere to be able to enjoy my content. I want to port my opponent, and I also want to hold up Caracas, so I'm not going to play out another card here. And if I'm also uploading my stuff to YouTube, you know, you run into much more copyright stuff there than you do here. Yeah, so, like, that's the thing. Like, during the week, the, you know, big time that I can stream is this time slot. And if you're not living in America, plus or minus, you know, a couple hours worth of time zone, then you don't get to see it if I play music while I do it. You know, on the weekends I can stream much earlier and give other people a chance to see my content live, but I'd rather everyone be able to see everything. Ah, yes, the classic 3-mana brainstorm, just like Richard Garfield intended. All we have to do is play the right music. Then it's fine. I am fine with playing a Stoneforge. If that gets swept up, like, it still cantrips and gets me the sword that I want to get. And my opponent, like, can't do anything other than Force of Will it, which is a trade I would gladly take. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. You're a trooper. Alright, so you pay your 3 mana for the Terminus, I bounce Thalia, and then on my next turn, I just have, like, great lines available to me. So, like, I probably go play Sword, play Thalia, hold Caracas up. That seems great. Raven Henson, try refreshing. So this sword is basically going to make any one of my threats connecting lethal or very close to it. Yeah, so now any 2-power creature that connects is lethal. It's good to know that my opponent has Vendilion Click in their deck. It's fine, like, every once in a while you just need to go and refresh the stream or do something of that nature in order to get it to be happy. You know? Like last night, when I thought I just needed to refresh the stream to get my bot to come back, and then I realized that all the bots were dead. It was sad. No, like, I mean the program for the bots is dead. Like, the entire MTG bot system is now dead. It was pulled from Twitch last night. I don't know why it was pulled. The creator doesn't know why it was pulled either. I'll have to check Twitter after this to see if there's any updates on it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Alright, show me what you got, opponent. Alright, that's a decent thing to have. Alright, do you have like a Snapcaster or a Counterspell? Because if not, this feels pretty good. Oh no! Oh, well, you don't have it right now. As a Bug Delver player, I'm always terrified of D&T. Golgari Charms and a Deluge on sideboard. Yeah, the Bug Delver matchup is very, very positive. Very, very positive. Between like the Mirren Crusaders and the Rest in Pieces, it's rough. The Grixis Delver matchup is closer to even. But like, my win percentage against Bug Delver is probably like 70-30 or something absurd like that. Like, no exaggeration there. Alright, you have a mentor. Don't know that your mentor is going to be enough. Like, with any top-decked 2-drop, I get to go flash in 2-drop, equip with Sword, equip with Batterskull, and then I have a monster in play. Oh man, that's great. He says, my group of friends call Mirren Crusader the Uchiha Madara against Bug. Naruto reference for anyone not familiar. Basically, super overpowered character. What do I think about Angel Stompy or Thalia Stompy? 100% would stream it. Probably will stream it. The deck's very fun to play with. Well, it's fun for me. It's not fun for my opponents. Land is fine. Do you have Force of Will blue card? Nope. So the Angel Stompy or Thalia Stompy decks are doing the same sorts of things that D&T decks are doing, but they have sort of a little bit of a bigger end game with more like 4 and 5 drops than D&T does. And they don't run Vials, instead they have mana acceleration, usually in the form of Soul Lands and Chrome Mox. Alright, my opponent just gets rid of the Germ. I think I would have gotten rid of the Batterskull and make me draw the Batterskull for turn instead of that. Like, that's just pretty much a strictly better line. So now I have the same line available to me as last turn. Or I can just cast the Mom, equip Mom with all of this. Right? Yeah, I can still do all of that. My opponent have Force now as their last card. Yeah, so my opponent, like, super punted. If they unexpectedly absent... Alright, maybe I had this Sword of Fire and Ice still on it too, so the Germ would have lived. I forget whether or not I equipped. But if I didn't equip, then like putting the Batterskull on top, countering the Batterskull on the way back down is so much better. So now I can return but not recast. So I'll port my opponent and go from there. Shouldn't have tapped the Caracas. They have Vendilion Click in their deck. So, like, all we need to do is dodge my opponent's one card being a counterspell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, and still some mana left over. Can I play around Force of Will? So I can Wasteland this Tundra. That counts this one. Tap down a land. That's that one. And then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Play it, but not equip. I think I want to equip, though. I think that 1 point of life might matter. And opponent drawing Jace on their next draw certainly matters. What if I Ghost Quarter them and they don't have another land? No, that's... If I Ghost Quarter them and they don't have another land, another basic, that would let me do all of the things. But if they do have another land, it's rough. Like, they probably have 5 islands and 2 to 3 plains, so I'm not going to take that line. Alright, you have 1 card. Does it answer Batterskull? No. At least not immediately. That's slightly tilting. And I think I'm just legit dead to that, right? That's 5 monks, that's 7 damage, so literal any spell is death. Alright, not technically dead, but sans Recruiter of the Guard, I don't think I have any outs. Yeah, my opponent has drawn insanely well. And, like, so be it, that happens sometimes. So, like, we had multiple times that game where if my opponent bricks, like, I just straight up win. Yeah, like, my opponent definitely made some errors. Like, they could have just, like, disenchanted the Ether Vial on their last turn in order to just, like, win the game on that turn, but they gave me another draw step. Like, they should not have done that. And there were a couple other things that were a little bit questionable that they did as well. But so be it. You know, we're currently 2-2 in this league. We'll see if we can win the last one here to redeem ourselves. I'm going to take about 30 seconds to run to the restroom here. If you have any questions about the list, feel free to throw them out. Alright, so someone says, important, brainstorm or cast that game, they're bound to draw answers. Sure, but I'm referring to a couple of, like, very specific spots. Like, there's a specific spot where we eat a blind Terminus with lethal on board, you know? And then, like, we have the opponent hellbent, or very close to it, when they flop the Mentor. And then they get draws of, like, what was it, like, unexpectedly absent into, like, disenchant. There was a middle turn there, but, like, there are a lot of cards they can see that don't get them there, and it all worked out for them. You know, it's good against Miracles. Hakori! Get them! You get one land! Yeah, and that's fine. Like, I don't expect to beat Miracles with this deck as is. I don't think that's reasonable. What I think of the Miracles and lands matchup overall. Miracles is probably slightly unfavorable. Lands is very positive for red-white, and probably even-ish to slightly negative for mono-white. The lands matchup really depends on how many Sanctum Prelates you're playing. Like, that's the big defining feature. So, small data set here, but when I wasn't playing Prelate in mono-white, I went 4-1 against lands. Again, when I was not playing Prelate. And with red-white, currently 6-1 or 6-2 against lands. Thanks, now I have to spend another 30 minutes reading the Naruto wiki. Gosh. There's a lot of lore there. And, reading the wiki is much faster than watching the show. That show dragged on forever. I think my opponent plays Grixis Delver. I'm not throwing this back. 100% not throwing this back. I get to, like, lead on Mom, and then Wasteland my opponent. I'm super sad if they lead on Deathrite. Delver, deal. Yeah, if the lands player is prepared to beat you with things like, blind flipping the Delver kind of is rough. Also rough would just be like, land Cabal Therapy, get both Thalias, take all my gas. Don't therapy me. Don't do it. Okay, that's fine. That's less fine. So this Wingmare can theoretically trade with the Delver, so that's fine. And then it's just the Deathrite Shaman that I'm going to have to deal with. And again, we're not just gonna like play an Ether Vial or something like that on that turn. Like I'm taking 5 a turn here. I don't have time for that Ether Vial to be good. Oh shit, I misclicked there. I needed to play another Wasteland. And not this Vial, because then I Wasteland the Underground Sea. They'll fetch another black source with Misty, and then I eat that black source with the next Wasteland. So this gets punished if my opponent does not have another black producing land. Alright, opponent is F6'd. And I just died of the Delver that's on board, so it doesn't matter. Alright, we just got Delvered there. Hand was very, very good. It did not work out. That happens. We're on the draw, and we lost to Goldoka. And like this is one of the strengths of Grixis Delver, right? Like you have the best cantrip shell with the most efficient threats you can find, most of which cost 1 mana or effectively 1 mana. So here are the pile of cards that I'm considering bringing in. Revokers are pretty weak. Under normal circumstances, I normally pull my recruiters from the deck. That's what I've been doing, like, more recently. But a lot of times the Grixis Delver deck is having more game against you post-sideboard, so you want some cards that can kind of grind out as well. The awkward thing is that, like, since I'm playing this Wingmare shell, I'm trying to, like, out-tax my opponent. So, like, in order for me to keep the recruiters in, I would need to trim some number of the rest of these cards. And these cards are all insanely good against Delver, and I don't think I want to go into trimming my lands. So while I've been keeping the recruiters with red-white, I don't know that that's necessarily the case here. I'd rather have like extra removal, Answers to True Name Nemesis, and this generic card. I'll submit as is. This hand does not have any threats, but any threat that we play will be uncounterable. And I can also lead on a Caracas and like potentially bait a Wasteland out of my opponent and turn on the second Caracas. Yes, Turbo Xerox indeed. Play all the cantrips you can, and you know, as many one-cost threats and answers as you can, and just like try to play as close to the same game plan as you can every game. 100% just removing this Deathrite Shaman right now. My opponent's not playing any basics, so there's no downside to this card. On my next turn, I'll be able to like put Jitte in, playing it around days, because for some reason the Delver pilots are keeping days on the draw, even though that seems pretty questionable. Young Pyromancer. Sure. If I don't draw a creature, I might just Council's Judgment away the Young Pyromancer before it gets out of control. If I draw a creature, I might just jam Jitte. Unclear. What? Oh, God damn it! Why? It is very statistically unlikely. I will just Council's Judgment here. And my opponent F6'd. Super punished for my choice. Opponent probably should have made that attack before playing the true name. They also, like, maybe are not supposed to make that attack in the face of Vile, but, you know, whatever. I can play Flicker Wisp, Flicker Wisp my Flicker Wisp, flicker out a token, and then go Jitte equip the next turn where my opponent can't see it coming, but it doesn't matter if they see it coming because they have, they've seen it with Gitaxian Probe. So I'm just going to present the most flying power that I can. And we'll decrease my opponent's clock. I am the aggressor now. I have my opponent dead in 2 turns. They don't. My opponent still does have 5 cards, though. My opponent should probably tap the Trop over the Underground Sea there. It's unlikely that they have very many green cards in their deck, if any. So just leaving themselves the opportunity to just play a different card is probably better. Unless they have Ancient Grudge. Then I take back everything I said. Of course they do. God damn it. Can't catch a break. Bricked on land at a very critical turn there. It's frustrating. I'm going to attack my opponent. Like, I can't knock out this Liliana the Last Hope, or get anything close to knocking it out right now. So I'd rather just, like, put my opponent dead to anything. I will be dead to my opponent's board before I'll be dead to that Liliana ultimate. Yeah, and so this is something I've been talking with people about. You don't lose to the Delver draws that are normal Delvery things most of the time in the post-sideboard games. You lose to these games where they just go like, oh, I drew True Name, Ancient Grudge, and Liliana the Last Hope. Good luck. Womp womp. Game 2, lost to True Name, Ancient Grudge, and Lily last. Alright. So, Wingmare build did not go well tonight, but I don't necessarily think that it was a bad build by any means. We lost to Slivers, which is not a deck that is, you know, even like 0.5% of the metagame, so like I don't care about that. We lost to Miracles, which I expect to lose, and my opponent had two very, very strong hands with Delver. You know, sometimes you lose to Delver, even though it's a positive matchup. Like, it's not crazy positive, it's just positive. So be it, that's okay. I was out for 2 hours. I assume you broke the Womp Womp counter based on the results of the last 3 matches. Yeah, you know, like, the first 2 matches were great. We executed the game plan of, like, Thalia into Wingmare, and the opponents just died. And then in the following games, shit went wrong. And, like, so be it. That happens. So I liked the build. The Ghost Quarters were performing fine. You know, they're maybe not quite as good as Rashad and Port, but they're, like, certainly fine, especially if you are going up to the 24th land. So one of the problems with this build is that there's not a lot of finishing power, and we're really soft to -1 hate. So, like, against that Liliana of the Veil, or Liliana the Last Hope, like, it's just Stoneforge Mystic that lives through it out of all of the main deck cards. So, like, that just ends up being absolutely unbeatable instead of very, very, very strong. But, you know, no regrets in trying out this build. I'll probably try some more Wingmare builds in the future. Delver decks and anti-Delver decks are very popular. You want more Serra Avengers? Yeah, that's totally reasonable. Like, I'm pretty happy with my red-white build versus Delver. Like, I get those 3 Path to Exiles out of the sideboard that feel pretty darn good. In addition to Magus just, like, ending the game immediately as a, you know, win-maker threat. That's all fine. If I were playing a more stock, like, mono-white D&T list, something like this, I'd be a little bit less afraid of the Liliana specifically, because I would have all of the Mirren Crusaders, but, you know, True Name is still definitely a problem. So, something to think about is, like, do we want to change any cards to fight how we're doing against Delver? So, like, in that match, you saw me not board in Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace would have been, like, borderline irrelevant that game against my opponent's draw of, like, Young Pyromancer, True Name, Lily Last Hope. And while Rest in Peace is, like, a solid sideboard card against Delver, a lot of times they can just ignore it if they have the other half of their deck. Which is frustrating because they get so much value out of their graveyards. Yeah, but I wasn't going to beat a, like, triple sideboard card to hand. So, like, so be it. It happened. Alright, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it for an evening. Again, my name is Phil Gallagher. If you enjoyed this content tonight, please follow. I've been really happy with the support I've been getting from all of you. I have one more bonus stream queued up that I need to do. We hit 20 subs last stream, which I was very, very happy about. So I owe you all one more bonus stream. Depending on how my weekend is shaping up, I might try to do one either Saturday or Sunday morning. That's the most likely time I will stream next. Otherwise, you can catch me on my normal times, Monday and Wednesdays, at about 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I'll look forward to streaming for you again soon. I'm going to just take a moment here, see if I can find anyone else who is streaming Legacy and dump you into their channel. I'm guessing Iskawa is. Da-da-da. Yeah, I'll host Iskawa. He's a pretty funny guy. Or Isoka.